Hey everyone! In a moment, you're going to be joined by author Howard Bloom to discuss his views on the Boston bombings. But first, I wanted to tell you about Vlogger Fair, a YouTube gathering featuring vloggers like iJustine, Charles Trippy, Shay Carl, Prank vs. Prank, and quite a few more. The event takes place in Seattle on June 8th and June 9th. You can get your tickets down below, and you should get them before they sell out.
Okay, listen, this Boston Marathon bullshit has been really bothering me. It's one of the most misunderstood episodes in the last year. And because it's misunderstood, we don't seem to know the world we are living in, nor do we seem to know ourselves. What am I talking about? Condoleezza Rice this morning gave a speech that was on C-SPAN Book TV. And in it, she said that the kind of terrorism that we saw in Boston was caused by hopelessness. Now, this is a manifestation of a little cliche that we've been living with for the last 50 years. All forms of violence, according to this cliche, are caused by oppression, humiliation, and poverty. Poverty? Hopelessness? Give me a break. Were the two kids who pulled off these Boston bombings poor? No, far from it. They were middle class. Were they frozen out of the realms of privilege? No. They went to one of the most exclusive private schools in Boston. Were they kept from having an education? No, far from it. They got scholarships in college. These were real, honest-to-God, preppy kids, to the extent that you can be a preppy if you're an immigrant. But the point is, in a multicultural society, the kids in their school were hip for being multicultural. And white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, I don't know if you've noticed this, are out of fashion in many circles today. So these kids were not suffering from a lack of privilege. They were not suffering from a lack of money. And there are several other examples of people who are not suffering from poverty who've been involved with what you might call violence. See if these people sound violent to you. Osama bin Laden, one of the richest children on planet Earth, with everything available to him that billions of dollars could possibly buy. Was he violent? If he was violent, was he violent because he was frustrated because of his poverty and his oppression? He could go anywhere in the world he wanted on his own private jet, anytime. Is that oppression? So what drives people to the kind of violence that we saw in the Boston bombing? It was loathsome, it was disgusting. I don't know about you, but when I saw the reports, I'm not a kind of person who normally cries at all, ever, even when it's called for, even when your father dies. But I was on the verge of tears with this stuff. What causes this stuff? Idealism. Idealism, the same stuff that drives you and me. The desire to do good on behalf of other people. What? The desire to do good on behalf of other people tears the limbs off of marathon runners? How could that possibly be? It's easy. There is a philosophy in the world, according to which there is only one God. There has only been one legitimate prophet who has ever delivered his message properly. That prophet was given a complete set of laws written by God himself. There is only one form of justice in the world. It comes by living by God's own laws, and it comes from living under God's own judicial system, under God's own governmental system, and with God's own military system. This worldview is called a complete system of belief by the scholars who are within its system, its own scholars. And it is called Islam. And Islam comes in many forms today. The people you know and the people I know tend to be moderate Muslims. They don't really know the history of Islam. They don't really know what's in their holy books. They don't really know what's in the Quran. But there are some people who bother to take the time to read the Quran and the Hadith and Ibn Ishaq and Al-Tabari, the Muslim source books. And what do they discover? Muhammad is never called a prophet of peace. A prophet of peace is a phrase unique to you and me. It's unique to the Judeo-Christian tradition. It does not exist in the Islamic tradition. Muhammad is called a prophet of war. Muhammad by Osama bin Laden, who was a terrific scholar. He knew his history, backwards and forwards, was called a prophet of conquest. And Muhammad got across a very simple belief system. It said that if you are righteous, if you are proper, if you are just, you will want to liberate your fellow human beings. If your fellow human beings are living under any other system but Islam, if they are living under any legal system but Sharia, if they are living, worst of all, under man-made laws in a universe in which God himself has given the only true laws, you are doomed to hell. Now, if you're an idealist, do you want to see tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of your fellow human beings spend eternity in hell? Remember, eternity is a hell of a lot longer than the life that we lead here on earth. Of course you don't. You want to liberate people unto the truth. And what is the truth? The truth is Islam. The kids in Boston who came from Chechnya, who were educated in Dagestan, all of this in Central Asia, all of it in Islamic territory in Central Asia, a territory that is rife with the idea that Islam must shake off the shackles of the West, even if the West is the former Soviet Union, even if the West is Russia, and finally become what it was always meant to be: one world government under one world leader, answering to one God, operating according to one set of laws. If you believe that that's the way to liberate all of humanity, and if it takes blowing a few legs off to get rid of that decadent thing called Western civilization, in which women show their legs in things like marathons, thus showing how degraded they are, if your goal is to liberate all of humanity, a few arms and legs are worth it. That is the story of the Boston Marathon bombing, and it has nothing to do with poverty.